Good afternoon, producer Susan. Are you warm enough for you?
Oh my gosh, this weekend was unbearable.
Was it
The
the
real
temperature?
feel was 108 degrees.
That was it feels like temperature?
Yeah.
Yeah. You get some of the torrential rains we've had here in Jersey with
Oh
cars.
yeah. Friday was pretty horrific.
About 2 hours ago here in New Jersey, middle of the afternoon, a spot thunderstorm dropped 6 inches of rain in 45 minutes.
Wow.
And now we didn't get a drop of rain where I am. 30 miles away, there were cars literally floating down the street. It was
Wow.
just amazing. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, we got a lot, as usual, we have a lot to talk about, got some fun stuff to talk about. So let me give you a quick rundown of what I hope to get in today. Anyway, today is July 18th, which it's 2 weeks after after Independence Day. Our quote of the week is from Nobel Award-winning economist, the late Milton Friedman, and I've included a brief part of this quote, longer quote, in one of my earlier podcasts. But today, I want to give you the whole quote on what causes inflation. In what is both our stupidest and saddest thing that I've heard all week, we'll bring you another video of people being asked very simple questions about the United States and how they are unable to answer it. And these are people who vote. They pick our next president. In our runner-up category, we'll tell you how our climate czar, former Senator John Kerry, responded when asked about his use of private jets to fly to climate conferences around the world. We'll tell you about a country in Europe that is getting ready to throw away millions of doses of unused COVID vaccine, why they are throwing them away, and how much they paid for those doses that are going to wind up in a dumpster. We'll tell you where you can find the world's fastest roller coaster and how fast it goes. We'll tell you how a dog helped capture an escaped prisoner in Pennsylvania who had been on the run for 10 days. We'll share with you an incident from New York City that illustrates just how pointless the decision to declare the Times Square district to be a gun-free zone was. We'll tell you about a story in New Mexico about a police officer getting shot in the face with a shotgun that was fired by a wanted felon. And it was a story that got no national media coverage, and how local prosecutors and judges contributed to this tragic incident. And finally, we'll tell you about an interesting gender composition of the teams from 20 countries that recently competed in the International Mathematics Olympiad. And finally, our taxpayer relief shot is from Waco, Texas, where at 3 o'clock in the morning, a man sleeping in a hotel shoots and kills a man who was attacking 3 women in the hallway outside of his room. You think we can fill 30 minutes?
That's an awful lot of material to cover.
All right. Well, let's get right into it. Here's our quote from the late Milton Friedman, again, Nobel Award-winning economist. And this is the long version. But I think, inflation is still on us. Wages for 28 months have not kept up with inflation, which means your paycheck today, even if you've had a 12% increase in your paycheck in the past 28 months, your paycheck today, even with a 12% increase, is still buying less than it was 28 months ago. So here we go, Milton Friedman. Inflation is made by government and no one else. Of course, no government likes to accept that responsibility for its own defects. So governments, of course, blame greedy businessmen, grasping trade unionists, and spendthrift consumers. No doubt that businessmen are greedy, no doubt trade unionists are grasping, and everyone knows that housewives are spendthrifts. But neither the greedy businessmen nor the grasping trade unionists nor the spendthrift housewives produce inflation. The reason they do not produce inflation is because none of them has access to printing presses on which they can turn out those lovely, or some people think not so lovely, pieces of green paper with which you purchase your goods and services. Not one of them has the authority to create deposits at the central bank or the Bank of England, which other banks can use to meet their obligations. Only government has a monopoly on the printing presses. Only government has the authority to create deposits in central banks, which are the ultimate deposits. Inflation, and here's the takeaway, inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. It is the result of a greater increase in the quantity of money than in the output of goods and services which are available for purchase. So, anything you want to argue with, or what do you think?
No, I agree with that.
So it comes down to too much money chasing too few goods and services, and government is the one that controls how much money there is in the economy. And by the way, what the Federal Reserve is doing, by the way, with cranking up interest rates, is they're literally trying to take money back out of the economy. During the COVID crisis, the U.S. government pumped 5.7 trillion of unbudgeted emergency COVID relief spending into the economy. The printing presses were running night and day, 5.7 trillion. And here's something ironic. Remember getting your $1,400 COVID relief stimulus check?
Yes.
Do you know how much more the average consumer's been spending a month in the past 28 months as a result of inflation?
Considerably. I know it's tough going to the grocery store these days.
Well, the estimate is roughly $100 a week or $425 a month, which means that $1,400 stimulus check you got has cost you over $6,000 so far.
Yeah.
In inflation. So you got a $1,400 check, it cost you $6,000. Such a deal, huh?
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to dwell on that and talk about more about inflation and how government causes it, but government has to stop spending, which is why, by the way, the Inflation Reduction Act is just, throwing gasoline on the fire. Biden likes to brag how many jobs it's going to create. Do you know how many open, unfilled jobs this country currently has right now?
A lot. Yeah, every store you go into in my town's hiring.
Almost 10 million, which means that there are more than 2 open, unfilled jobs for every job seeker. And do you know what the current average hourly wage in this country is? And when I say hourly, I'm talking excluding salaried supervisors, managers, and owners. Do you know what the average hourly wage in this country is right?
Over $15 an hour.
Try $33.58 as of June. You can look that up on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Just Google BLS table B-3, and you will see that the average hourly wage in this country as of June is $33.58. The Walmart near me is now paying people $18.50 an hour to come in at night to put soup cans on shelves. Soup cans,
which is twice the minimum wage.
Twice the minimum wage.
I don't know of anybody that's hiring at minimum wage, because everybody would laugh at you if you only offered minimum wage.
The only people that are working at a minimum wage, by the way, which is less than 3% of the population, again, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, are people like waiters and cocktail waitresses and casino dealers. And by the way, when I've talked
they're getting tips.
Their tips easily equal 2 times to 4 times their base hourly wage. As you know, I go to a casino from time, and I've asked several different cocktail waitresses how much they make in a night on tips. And even on a weeknight, they're knocking down $250, and this is net after they share with the bartender and the bar back. On a Friday or Saturday night in a casino, they're making $350 to $400 a night cash tips in a casino. They said, what they get paid, the base hourly wage is an insignificant part of their total compensation. So, all right, you want to move on to the stupidest and saddest thing I've heard all week?
Yes. What is both the stupidest and saddest thing?
I'm sorry?
What is both the stupidest and saddest thing at the same time?
These are U.S. citizens who vote. And hang on, I've got to wait for this ad to end here. Here we go. Hang on, I got to speed through this. But we've done one of these before. This is where the guy in the street, remember Jay Leno jaywalking?
Yes.
Where he asked people simple questions and they can't answer.
And I think I sent you a few clips. And I think I've sent you a few clips recently.
I'm sorry, I had the sound turned down. So what'd you say, producer Sue?
I sent you a few clips of some pretty stupid on the street.
And this is one of them, and I want to thank you for sending this. And again, we did one of these before, and here's one, and this is direct from producer Susan. Here we go. There we go. And let me back it up right to here.
Stars there are on the U.S. flag?
How many stars?
52.
Why does everybody say 52? What state is Utah in?
Michigan.
Yes. You know what?
So let me back that up. The first question is how many stars on the flag, and she answers 52. And then the next question he asked this young girl who's at voting age, what state is Utah in? Now, obviously, Utah is a state. So here we go.
52.
Why does everybody say 52? What state is Utah in?
Michigan.
Yes. You know what state Utah is in?
Look at
Utah, to be honest with you, I never heard of that place ever in my life. I'm
Hey.
under a rock.
Can you name 3 countries besides the USA?
I suck at history. I was like, my worst subject. Can we do like science?
No, any 3. Any 3. You know this.
A country? Oh my jeez, this is terrible. Oh my god. Country. Wait, besides the US?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't.
All right, it's fine.
I can't do history. I can't.
Do you know how many dimes there are in the dollar? Make up $1.
A dime is the 10 cent or the 5 cent?
You tell me.
So the woman, can you name 3 countries beside the U.S.? Gee, I don't know. That's a tough one, too. Producer Sue, can you name 3 countries beside the U.S.?
I could probably name 30 countries besides the US.
I've been to 30 countries beside the U.S. And the other one, Utah, I've never heard of that place. And again, these are people who vote. You know, I'm starting to think more and more that
That's like 5th grade geography. Remember that show, Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader?
Yeah, I do.
By the way, I think people are like 10 years old when they're in 5th grade.
Yeah, I mean, this is just so embarrassing. And this is an indictment on our, so by the way, in Chicago makes no bones about it. Chicago no longer holds people back. They just keep promoting them to the next grade. And that's why more than, I think 60% of the graduates from Chicago public schools can't read or do basic math at grade level.
Whatever happened to No Child Left Behind?
Well, that's Chicago's version of that. We just keep promoting you till you're till we get you out of here. Then you're basically on your own. So all right, let's see where else we're going to move on to if we're going to fit this all in here. Oh, the runner-up. So you know who former Senator John Kerry is, right?
Yeah.
And he's been appointed by Biden as the U.S. climate czar. And part of that job is he goes to all these climate conferences around the world. He goes to one in Davos, Switzerland. He goes to one in Greenland. And he's been flying there on private jets. Well, he was testifying before a congressional committee the other day, and he got called out on the hypocrisy of flying to climate conferences where they keep saying we need to reduce CO2 emissions, yet he's flying on a private jet. And so one of the congressmen, I'm not going to play the clip, so one of the congressmen asked him, how do you justify flying to climate conferences where you're urging people to reduce their CO2 emissions when you're flying there on your private jet? And he responded, Congressman, I don't own a private jet. And the congressman says, you don't own a private jet. So are you saying that? And he reads off the tail number and he reads off the Gulfstream 5 tail number. That's not your jet. And his answer and his response to the question was the sleaziest thing I've ever heard. That jet isn't mine. It belongs to my wife. How sleazy and childish is that? That's not mine. It belongs to my wife. And by the way, when he uses his quote, his wife's jet, of course, he bills the government for the fuel expenses of that jet because it's government travel. So, you know, the typical bill out rate on a private jet is $3,000 an hour while it's in the air. And God knows how many while it's on the air with the pilot waiting in a hotel room. So, of course, he sends the bill for that private jet travel to his boss, Joe Biden, for approval, because it's the government's paying for John Kerry to fly around the world on his wife's private jet, not his private jet. So that was my runner-up. Do you think it should have been the winner, or do you think that should stay the runner-up?
Yeah, no, I think that I'm really dismayed at the people who vote in this country
and have never heard of Utah.
There needs to be some sort of like basic literacy test.
I always, you know, I think that everybody, you know, there's a simple 10-question citizenship test. You know that, right? If you're an immigrant and you're playing, I think everybody should, and it's I mean, it's 10 questions at random, and there's like 16 different versions of that 10-question test. I think everybody who wants to vote should have to take one of those 10-question tests, which you can do in 60 seconds. And if you can't score at least a 60% on the 10 question. If you
I mean,
can't
I
get 6
actually think some of those citizenship tests are some of the questions are challenging. And I think some of our immigrants who to take the test to become citizens, they know more than Americans because they
Oh.
actually study to take that test.
I know several people who are naturalized Americans, and they are way more knowledgeable than the typical high school graduate, and even many college graduates. All right, you like roller coasters?
I do.
How many different roller coasters have you been on in your life?
Oh, a couple dozen at least.
What's the fastest, most scariest roller coaster you can recall being on?
Probably I can't think of the name of it, but one at maybe Hershey Park.
Okay. You ever watched like on Top Gun? You ever see when they catapult the jet off the deck of off a aircraft carrier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a roller coaster in Abu Dhabi, which is in the Middle East next to Dubai, that accelerates you from 0 to 149 miles an hour in just 4 seconds.
Wow.
That's faster than when they launch a fighter jet off the deck of an aircraft. Can you imagine going 0 to 149 miles an hour in 4 seconds?
Yeah.
By the
The
way,
only thing faster I can think of I've been on now, a ride down at I believe it's at like Universal Studios. It's like a Tower of Terror where they basically just drop you straight down.
oof,
But that's what 9.81 meters per second squared.
wow. Have you ever done the roller coaster on top of New York, and Las Vegas, or on top of
Yeah,
the
I've done that
stratosphere?
one.
You've done
That's
that?
a baby roller coaster.
That's a baby one. All right. Well, if anybody wants to look at that, just Google Abu Dhabi roller coaster, or it's the Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi, and it's just incredible. There's some videos there, some GoPro videos, and it's just incredible. All right. Producer Sue, you've got a Labrador Retriever, right?
I do.
All right. Well, 2 weeks ago or a week ago, we talked about the prisoner who was being held in county jail awaiting trial. The reason he wasn't in prison is that he was supposed to stand trial on murder charges. Well, he escaped from the county jail. County jails don't have they're not as secure as a state prison. Well, he's been on the run for 10 days. Well, it turns out that he was caught and captured because of a couple's chocolate Labrador. And I'm going to try to play this clip here. Let's see if I can play it without a commercial. I forgot to tee this one up. My bad. And basically, assuming I can get it to play, what you're going to hear is that this couple lives in a very rural area, and then they've got a huge back lawn, and there's an edge of a wood like 300 yards away. 300 yards, 1,000 feet. And all of a sudden, for no reason, their dog was on the porch. It starts barking at the woods. I mean, 300 yards, you'd have to throw a baseball 3 times to get to the edge of the woods. So the dog starts barking at the woods and then starts running at the woods. Let's see if I can get this story to play here. Okay. Hopefully there's no ad. Well, unfortunately there is an ad, but we can wait the ad out here in 8 more seconds.
While you
Here
wait
we
for that,
go.
I did hear the dog got a $2,000 reward.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
And his owners, Ron and Cindy Eklund. What started as a regular day at home turned into a face-to-face interaction with one of the country's most wanted men, Michael Burham. The Eklunds were enjoying an afternoon out on their patio when all of a sudden, Tucker takes off, running deep into their backyard towards a creek, barking the entire way. Tucker usually comes back when called, but he wouldn't listen.
So we started driving the golf cart over, and Cindy was out walking, trying to get the dog. And this guy stands up from behind the bank. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Camping." Well, no one's camping in my backyard. So I told Cindy to get on the cart. I knew who it was. I mean, you could see the tattoo on his arm.
After spotting Burham, the couple immediately went home and called 911.
He'd been in the woods for a while. He didn't have a shirt on at that point. We thought he had shorts on, but obviously he had rolled up the pants that he was wearing because he was by the water. obviously walking through the water.
The Eklunds, still in shock, couldn't believe Burham was in their backyard.
I thought he was gone. I never thought he was in the backyard. I thought he was, Pittsburgh or, way far away from here.
Finally, once Burham was captured by police, the Eklunds say the community breathed a sigh of relief. But none of this would have happened if Tucker wouldn't have alerted them that someone was trespassing.
For some reason, he just got up and took off running. How did he know someone's 300 yards away that shouldn't be there? I mean, there's been people down there before, and he's never done that. But for some reason, this time, he knew. He took off.
The Eklunds say they're proud of the law enforcement agencies who have been working to bring Burham to justice, and they're thankful they have such a special dog in Tucker.
And again, there was a $2,000 reward, and the sheriff's department has awarded the $2,000 to Tucker the dog. So what do you
Yeah,
think?
I hope they buy him some nice treats for that. But when he first escaped, though, when he first ransacked a house in that same area to steal some food and clothes, and there was a little terrier dog named Sweepy that horrible man killed too.
Yeah, that's, well, a thug is a thug. If he's going to murder people, he's not going to think twice about murdering a dog. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Anyway, last year, a little background. So up until a year ago, New York City, if you wanted a concealed carry permit, they would laugh at you. They say, don't even bother. We don't give those out. Anyway, the Supreme Court in the Bruin decision basically said it's unconstitutional to not issue qualified people a concealed carry permit if they want one. So New York City, you have to issue concealed carry permits to qualified individuals. So they put up all these roadblocks. You got to, take all these classes. There's only two places in this, there's only two places you can take them. It's 16. You got to go 16 visits, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, then on top of that, they decided, well, we have sensitive areas. So we're going to create something we call the Times Square District, and we're going to call it a gun-free zone. Now, have you been to Times Square?
Yeah, it's yeah, I've been to Times Square many times.
All right, so you can stand in the middle of Times Square and you can look 1 block north, 1 block south, 1 block east, and that's it, right? You can see all of Times.
I guess yeah, so Times Square is where Broadway crosses 7th, so from between 6th and 8th Avenues. And I'll be generous, I'll maybe go from north to south, I'll maybe go 5 blocks on either side. Because it's, that cross where,
Right,
you've got
okay.
a lot of.
So, but when you say 5 blocks, but not the whole, it's not the back of the block, it's just the block you can see the front of. It's the blocks that touch Times Square, right? It's the blocks
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah,
the,
because Times Square is I'd say it encompasses a couple blocks.
well, but again, but it's basically, but the frontage has to be touching 7th or Broadway.
Yeah.
You don't care about the back of the block that's over on 8th Avenue, right? That's not considered. If
No,
you're on 8th
I'd
Avenue,
say between 6th and 8th.
okay.
And I'll go maybe 40th to 47th?
Maybe, right, maybe. Anyway, New York City in this childish tantrum declared a 27 square block area that basically goes from the Hudson River to the East River and 6 blocks north and 6 blocks south to be, quote, the Times Square District, and declare it to be a gun-free zone, which means that even if the city of New York has issued you a concealed carry permit, you technically can't even be in a subway that's going underneath Times Square because that 27 square block area is a gun-free zone. Now, but much to the shock and surprise of the mayor and the city council, apparently the only group of people who have been complying with that new law about no guns are people they have issued concealed carry permits to, as evidenced by thugs continuing to shoot each other within that 27 square block area, with the most recent incident occurring yesterday when a thug at 11 o'clock at night, very busy time, pulled out a gun and shot and wounded 3 others right smack in the center of Times Square. And this is not the first, second, or third shooting that's occurred in that Times Square. So, yep, Mayor, you got it right. Concealed people, what? Go ahead.
So you said in addition to the blocks, and I thought I was being generous by giving. So I said between 6th and 8th, and I was going to go 5 blocks north and south. So that's like a 10 block radius I was given it. And I thought I was being generous. But you just said about the subways underneath Times Square.
Yep.
Now Grand Central is just a block over to the east?
Yeah,
And you've got pretty much every major subway route going in and out of Grand Central.
it's basically, they basically said to people that they had to give concealed carry. If you want to go anywhere in New York, in other words, if you want to go north, south, east, west, 99 times out of 100, you're going to have to transit that area that we've defined as the Times Square district. And therefore, if you're going to travel anywhere in the city of New York, other than Wall Street, you cannot have your gun with you. And of course, the thugs are paying attention to that, right? That's so. So
They're
anyway,
all law-abiding citizens, right?
right, and they are continuing to shoot each other within that gun-free zone on a regular basis. The most recent one being yesterday. If you doubt me, just Google shooting in Times Square and set your time filter to 1 week, and you'll get that story. If you set your time filter to the past year, you'll get a dozen stories of people being shot in Times Square. None of them being shot by a licensed concealed carry holder, because they're not permitted to bring their guns. All right. I call this the situation, I call it stories you won't see on TV. And certainly taxpayer relief shots, the media never airs those. But here's a tragic one, and the officer's still fighting for his life. But I know I checked. This did not make the national news anywhere. In New Mexico, 2 days ago, at 2:00 in the morning, an officer saw a car driving with no headlights and no taillights, so he pulls the driver over. Driver fled the vehicle on foot, and the officer gave chase. Now remember, this is at 2:00 in the morning. Shortly after the chase began, the suspect, unknown to the officer, the suspect turned and shot the officer in the face with a sawed-off shotgun, which of course is illegal, that he'd been carrying and concealing, and the officer's in critical condition. Now, what makes this incident even more egregious? In January of this year, this same suspect was arrested after engaging in another gunfight with other officers during a prior violent incident. So 7 months ago, this guy who shot the officer in the face with a shotgun was arrested after engaging in a gunfight with police. My question is, what was this guy doing back out on the street? What were the district attorney and the judge who granted him bail thinking? Any thoughts?
We are seeing more and more stories about these district attorneys letting these felony cases go. And again, we talk about this all the time with voting, that you're letting this is where you vote for your district attorney and your judge, and they're letting these hardened criminals, these felons, back out on the street.
Remember,
these things should not be happening.
It should not. This guy should have not been back on the street. If you engage in a gunfight with police, a gunfight is basically attempted murder. So this guy was basically attempting to kill not one, but several cops in January. And here he is back out on the street. And basically they said, okay, hey, you missed the first time, here's a second chance. And remember about 4 months ago, we talked about the story up in Rochester where they offered the guy, the school janitor who had raped the 4-year-old, 9-year-old girl.
Yeah.
They gave him 9 months in county jail and not having to register as a sex offender as a plea deal. Remember that one?
Unexcusable.
It just I shake my head, and I hope the voters of this country pay attention. And that's why I do these stories. That's one of the reasons I do the podcast, is to educate people that just don't look at the top of the ballot, look at who's running for judge, look at their records, look at the district attorneys. Because in New York, I think we did another one where a guy killed a cop. He set up a fake sale of a used car for $6,000. He said cash only, bring cash. So an off-duty cop showed up, and this guy, who was a guy, I think he had 31 prior, the guy was 34 years old with 31 prior arrests, was armed with it. So here's a convicted felon, 31 prior arrests, 34 years old, shot and killed an off-duty cop who came to buy a used car. My question is, if you're 34 years old with 31 prior arrests, why are you on the street?
Yeah.
Right. All right. All right. So have you ever heard of the International Mathematics Olympiad?
I have.
Well, the results came in, by the way, People's Republic, it was all 6-person teams. It was 20 countries, People's Republic of China, United States, Korea, Romania, Canada, Japan, but blah, blah, Turkey. Each team had 6 people. Republic of China came in first with 6 gold. The United States came in second with 5 gold. and 1 silver, which is nice to know that we scored at least in the top 2.
Yeah, I was pleased to see we came in second place.
But here's the thing that's interesting. So you've got 20 countries, six persons per country, 6 contestants per country. Of those 120 people, 119 were male and only 1 was female. The 1 female was on the Turkish team. Any
Mhm.
thoughts why males were dominating? Was that
Yeah,
sexist?
I don't know. I know that in some countries, women are not as valued, but I'm surprised that in some, first world countries like the United States, that there wasn't a woman on the team.
And even Korea, South Korea, women in South Korea and Canada. I
Mhm.
mean, only 1 woman from 1 country, and that 1 woman was from Turkey. So I'm just
Yeah.
stunned. I don't know if something but and then you go back to the movie. Was it Hidden Numbers, Hidden Figures, about the 2
Yeah.
black
Oh,
women?
yeah. I'm blanking on that guy's name. A Beautiful Mind.
No. Well, that's Richard Feynman. I'm talking about the 2 black women who helped calculate the remember the Apollo moonshot?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm blanking
And
on
that
the name of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Richard Feynman is the guy you're thinking of.
Uh-huh.
But no, but the 2 in Hidden Figures, that was the 2 black women who
Mhm.
calculated by hand the trajectory to get us to the moon and back. But anyway, so that
Yeah.
was just of note. Anyway, I know we're running out of time. So let's talk about our taxpayer relief shot, which I think is a classic. And let's hope I can get this. This is from Waco, Texas. A guy's in a hotel. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's awakened by shouting and screaming in the hallway outside his hotel room. And we call them taxpayer relief shots. Do I have enough time to do the intro or not?
I think so.
All
One
right.
of them.
Let me see if I can just find why we call them a taxpayer relief shot. Because when a good guy or a good woman with a gun shoots and kills a thug, you save the taxpayers money. Here's how the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, describes it. Hang on, if I get this to play for me.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And again, this is people exercising their God-given and constitutional right to defend themselves and the lives of others from death or serious bodily injury at the hands of thugs. And here we go, Waco, Texas.
Police departments, they were busy tackling crime this past weekend. Fox 44's Renato G spoke with the Waco Police Department to learn more about a fatal hotel shooting.
This past weekend, an altercation ensued between 5 people here at the Hotel Indigo, leading to the death of 1 man. On Saturday, July 15th, around 3:15 in the morning, Waco PD officers arrived at the Hotel Indigo and found a man with 1 gunshot wound. First responders performed life-saving measures and transported the man to the hospital, where he later died of his injuries. Public Information Officer with the Waco Police Department, Sierra Shipley, shares the events that led to the fatality.
The male with the gunshot wound in the beginning had an altercation between himself and 3 other females.
When a male guest staying at the hotel heard the argument and went to help the women. Police say the initial aggressor then attacked the man who was trying to help.
The first man started to attack the man that was asking if anyone needed any help and had choked him. And so that's when the man who was trying to help in the beginning ended up shooting and killing the individual involved.
Investigators with the Waco Police Department interviewed everyone involved and have not made an arrest at this time. This incident is still under investigation, as this marks the 7th homicide for the city of Waco this year. In Waco, Renato G, Fox 44.
So what do you think? Justifiable shooting?
Yeah. When are people learn that people in Texas really like their guns?
They do. Texas, by the way, has one of the highest household rates of gun ownership. And by the way, as you know, I've got business in Texas. I work with a couple of companies down there, and a couple of guys. Whenever I get a ride, they pick me up at the airport. They're driving their pickup trucks, and I have yet to. I always ask, because I know the answer is going to be yes. I always ask them, so what kind of gun you carrying? I don't say, are you carrying a gun? I ask what kind of gun. And some they say, well, I got this one in the console, and I got this one in the back seat or something. So I've yet to be in a pickup truck in Texas that doesn't have at least 1 handgun in it. So thugs in Texas, be warned. Now, it may be a little different in places like downtown Houston, But
Mhm.
if you're out in Waco, you're out in Midland, Odessa, you trust me, well, I think last week it was San Antonio, the guy had to drive up ATM, right? They tried to rob him at
Yeah.
the ATM and he dropped 2 of them. So,
I mean, I just assume that everybody in Texas has a gun on them, or in
um,
their vehicle, or certainly in their house.
well, you'd be right more times than you'd be wrong. And I can speak from experience on that. All right. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nope. Oh, I think for a coming up session with the humidity we've been having is about the difference between like what is it, the wet bulb and the
Wet bulb, dry bulb.
yeah, and this real field temperature that we're experiencing.
Okay, we'll remind me to do that, and we'll talk about wet bulb, dry bulb, and humidity and all that good stuff. All right.
Because it's been miserable over here.
All right. Little earth science. All right. Anyway, I want to thank all of you who listen to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things I find of interest and importance. Hope you found them as interesting as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. Again, spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. And if you want to email me, just email at joe@jerzeejoe.com. And with that, unless you've got something to add, we'll say goodnight. Anything that you want to add? All right. Producer Susan, good night. Talk to you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.